Hey everyone, it's Alex and welcome to this Marvel Snap video. We're going to be discussing the latest balance update to push into Marvel Snap as well as the latest patch too. We got a couple major highlights from that. They're actually releasing the patch and the balance update at the same time, which they've never done before, so let's hope that everything goes okay with that. But in the meantime, let's talk about Zabu, which is the first significant balance update. Now Zabu goes from a 1-2 to a 1-1, which is a significant nerf in power. What I will say about Zabu though, is that this card has been incrementally nerfed so many times since its inception. It was by far the best card in the game for the longest time. It got nerfed again. It's probably gotten nerfed even since then. And then what we have here is now an additional nerf. What I want to say though with Zabu is that although the effect is good and kind of reliant on being drawn relatively early, of course, because you want to draw into the cards. Zabu comes out on 1, you draw into your cards that are discounted, and the cards in your hand are not discounted, unlike the ongoing variation that it used to have. What we see is this like ballooning of incredible 4-drops, and that's kind of the major problem, right? Like when Zabu was an ongoing, you had Enchantress and you had Shang-Chi, and that was good enough. And those cards still make decks today, obviously. But now we have Galacta, we have Gwenpool, we have so many amazing cards that are like at the 4 cost that really you can make a deck that's like Zabu plus a bunch of 4 cost tech pieces and just like fill in random things elsewhere with like Surge and Mr. Fantastic and other just good cards. You get Zabu, a bunch of mid-range 4-drops that are tech pieces, and then just slam good cards into the deck and you've got yourself a good list. Zabu just enabled too much power from the 4 slot, and so as a result, it's getting pulled back a bit. These mid-range decks have been very popular, and for good reason. It feels like they have an answer to everything. It's like the modern version of Sarah Control, except Zabu enables the 2-card stud play on turn 6, where you're like, oh, well, I have Shang-Chi and I have Enchantress both discounted on turn 6. There's nothing you can do against me because I answer everything. And also with cards like Surge and Mr. Fantastic, if you don't hit the Zabu play, Mr. Fantastic's discounting the hand. Surge is discounting off the top. So like there's all these different ways to discount things, and these 4-cost cards are creating a meta problem in Marvel Snap. And so Zabu's taking a little bit of heat here, and it's also worth noting that there's a good chance that with Zabu getting nerfed, it makes sense with one of the future buffs as well, which is a 4-drop that was often being ramped out a little earlier than usual. So anyways, Zabu getting nerfed, probably needed considering how good the 4-drop cards are. And is Zabu taking astray for some of the high-quality 4-costed cards we've been getting? Possibly, but still, this probably had to happen considering the prevalence of those particular decks. This kind of makes me sad. Not really, because it really doesn't do that much. Going from a 3-3 to a 3-2 for Bullseye is not a significant nerf. I think this is an admission that the Bullseye-based discard decks are clearly at the top. You have the Conchu decks, which do pretty good. Those are like the dependable discard style. Black Knight's just completely gone from the meta. Hela feels like it's gone from the meta. And so Bullseye has been a very consistent contributor at the top end. There have been times where statistically we see Conchu outperforming the Bullseye variant, but there are times where like the ceiling on the Bullseye decks are just higher. Taking a power off Bullseye I don't think is that significant considering what those decks can do alongside Morbius and of course the negative power effect. It seems like Morbius and Dawkin are often the 2 major vertical attacks, and Bullseye is largely the activator. This here is almost like a warning shot to me. This is less of like we got to take power off that deck, more like this deck's probably a little too good. It's not destroying the game or anything. Like, I mean, it's running a 2.3 meta share right now. There was a point in time where Bullseye decks were everywhere. The meta's just moved on. But this has remained a pretty solid deck, and as a result, they're taking a little bit off it, but not that much. I don't think this is a significant nerf. If you're a Bullseye player, I don't think that you're like, oh, shucks, they ruined the deck. I think it's totally fine. Again, pure warning shot. Bullseye's still pretty legit. I don't think this does much to move the needle. This is a great buff, and I'll tell you, since Second Dinner has been leaning more into skills, we've been seeing some awkward interactions with skills, right? Like the way that like Nightmare interacts with them, Negasonic interacts with them, Mirage interacts with them, and they're fixing a couple of them today. Now, ironically, Negasonic has been seeing a lot of play lately in the Silver Surfer-based Fenris shell, which I think is one of the best decks in the game right now because it actually counters the Fantascar High Evo relatively effectively. You gain initiative, you wipe things out with Killmonger, you play the Negasonic, you trade their Hulk or whatever. Very good deck. Honestly, it's a phenomenal deck. However, with Negasonic, if they play a skill, you destroy the skill. It just wastes the proc. And so like this was one of those things that had to get ironed out. As I alluded to before, it is very notable. This is probably the most popular that Negasonic has ever been at 7%, which is great because that Fenner shell is phenomenal, and I do highly encourage you to play it. And similarly, we have Mirage here. And what's interesting about Mirage is that you're actually double dipping here. You're going to be copying only characters in your hand, in your opponent's hand, sorry, and giving them the +2 power, because if you copy a skill, skills don't have power, you're wasting that effect from Mirage, and also getting a 2-2 to 2-3 buff. This is a great change, so I think that Mirage is underplayed for a reason, simply not a good option in those hand generation decks. And now with the Victoria Hand stuff, like Victoria Hand has been ever so close to being legit, like ever so close, not quite making it. Small buffs like this, where the supporting contributing players like Mirage and others get better, makes that deck better as a whole. And so I do like this approach. I think that the Victoria Hand stuff should be a style of deck people should be wanting to play, and we're just not there yet. So I think Mirage getting a buff both in power and on its text is a great change. You know, I tend to appreciate when Second Ender goes back in time and buffs up cards that have seen absolutely no play, and I think the Thing is a good option for a buff. Now, I do have the Evo listed stats here because the regular Thing has no text to it, right? It's just a Patriot card, essentially. 4-6 to a 4-7. Not a crazy buff, but still, power's power. What I will say, though, is that you might not realize this or might not remember that the Thing actually got nerfed in its High Evo version. The original version of the Thing for High Evo was that it afflicted, it just did 3 kind of -1 afflictions, which meant that if there was only one card there, it would -3 that particular card. They changed it so that now it only affects 3 independent cards with -1, which was a buff towards the Abomination style strategies because it would guarantee a spread of kind of negative power. But also it made it so that if you only played the Thing into 2, it only -2 instead of -3. So a big change for the Thing's evolutionary version. And then that essentially took the Thing out of Evo to the point that why would you play the Thing when you can play like every other toxic based activator? Now you have Hazmat that's been nerfed, of course, because we had that Evo Hazmat based shell with Ajax. So the Thing has seen some multiple changes throughout the last couple years, and it's funny because it's a card that people don't really think about, but it has been on the cusp of being meta relevant a couple times. I don't think that a 4-7 changes all too much, but High Evo's gaining in popularity right now because of the Fantastic car, and although this is not end of turn effect, if High Evo starts to really catch on, perhaps the Thing does make its way into a couple different shells. And at the very least, for kind of low collection level players, it is a solid Patriot option. Then we go to Marvel Boy. This is interesting because I actually think Marvel Boy is still good as a 3-1. As a 3-2, he's back to essentially his base stat line because he got nerfed to a 3-1 from a 3-2. Now he's back up. And at that time, Gilgamesh Zoo was like pretty damn good. Like it was near the top 3 of the meta, and now it's kind of fallen off a bit. This is also technically a buff to Clea-based strategies because Clea and Marvel Boy were being kind of tied at the hip. So if you thought Clea was underperforming, or if you're someone who went in on Clea, you got yourself a buff there. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, what they're looking at here is like, okay, we want multiple archetypes to be fresh and be playable. And I think that's a good strategy for Marvel Snap because not only does it allow players to have many options for meta viability, but as a player, even if you're like, I only play Surfer, if you're only playing Surfer and you only play against Evo decks all day long, it's going to be exhausting regardless, right? So I think the variation in the meta and making it so that there you might encounter a couple Zoo players, you might encounter a couple discard players. You're going to like encountering different decks is just as important as being able to play different decks too, I think, for a positive gameplay experience. So ultimately, Marvel Boy, does it deserve a buff? I don't know if it's Marvel Boy that needed a buff, honestly, but clearly once they changed Marvel Boy, Zoo fell off a little bit, and let's see if it makes its way back. Jennifer Kale, this for me felt like, I don't want to say an obvious change, because at 2-2, it was never going to make it. Like, this was a card that no one was impressed with, no one was excited for. As a 2-3, it at least feels more fair. I think one of the major challenges here is exactly what the developer note says. Why play Jennifer Kale when you can play Zabu or whatever and get better 4-drops? Like, the 5-costed cards just don't feel like they carry their weight right now. There's a couple good ones, let's not lie, but at the end of the day, it's like, we need more of an incentive for Jennifer Kale, right? And I was often playing Jennifer Kale in decks where I wanted to actually use that +1 energy to sneak out a 6-costed card or whatever. It does have that flexibility, which I do appreciate. But a lot of strategies right now in Marvel Snap revolve around the 4 costs, where it's Zabu coming out early, Psylocke or whatever, to get like a card out on 3. Those types of strategies, Jennifer Kale can't obviously do because she's delayed a single turn because of the activate. So Jennifer Kale going to a 2-3 makes perfect sense to me. It just saw literally no play. I even coped with it a couple times and I was like, man, this card's not good. And maybe it's still not good, but at least 2-3, it has a base stat line that's less offensive. And so perhaps we'll see a little more experimentation because it definitely fell flat. Now, these next two changes are changes that I think that might stress some people out, but I want to just say, first of all, don't worry too much about Green Goblin. There's a reason why they're able to approach Green Goblin and say, you know what, we can go from a -3 to a -4. And I think the major reason why is because Merlin. The number of polymorph or Cersei-based decks has increased, and Merlin creates a situation where if, I don't know, Clog ever gets incredibly popular, Merlin decks can counteract that very straightforward. So, does Green Goblin represent a problem? I don't think so. Could it potentially be an annoying card? Like, is Clog metas good for the game? I don't think so either. You know what I mean? Like, let's be honest. These Clog-based metas where, like, you know, you got the Dr. Octopus, the Green Goblins, the Green Goblin and Titania type stuff. It's very frustrating, and I absolutely agree, guys. But we have more tools today than we ever have to get rid of Green Goblin. Not to mention Annihilus itself getting buffed, which means you could send the Green Goblin back via the Annihilus route too. So I think that the landscape for dealing with Green Goblin has increased, specifically with Merlin. And so if they want to try giving Green Goblin a little bit of a buff, you absolutely can. For me, Green Goblin was always about occupying space on the enemy board and not necessarily about the power, right? The power, of course, is beneficial, but taking up space on the board, because board real estate in Marvel Snap is a very limited quantity. Like, we know this, right? It's one of the challenges that Move has, for instance. That board space is so valuable, and occupying a slot with a Green Goblin is a massive disadvantage to any given player. This here, I think, is going to terrify a lot of people. Now, but there's also a segment of the player base that's been begging for Doom 2099 changes, like on Reddit, on X or whatever. Tons of people have been saying, hey, you guys keep nerfing Doom 2099. I want to play some Doom 2099 again, damn it. So give it back. Give it back. So now it goes from a 4-3 to a 4-4. Some of the other nerfs are still in effect, obviously, with the Doombot and stuff like that. But Doom 2099 is getting a little love here. There's a couple issues. First, the Invisible Woman coming at the end of the month is directly going to benefit Doom 2099. In fact, it's the reason why I gave it the card of the month, because Doom 2099 has always been a very, very, very good card. I gave it 5 stars at the original launch. It has been one of the best cards in the game up until the most recent nerfs have just completely thrown it to the wayside. It's only running a 0.7% meta share according to Untapped post-infinite stats last 30 days, so it's seeing almost no play. I still think that it's probably a decent deck, honestly, and this power increase is not going to throw it over the edge. I think what this is, honestly, this might be secondary saying, hey, let's see if people start playing Doom 2099 again. Let's see where it actually lands with our latest releases to get more information to lead up to the Invisible Woman launch, right? Now, I wonder if that's actually the case. Regardless, if Invisible Woman comes out too hot and Doom 2099 decks pump too hard, I'm sure they'll kind of rein it in a little bit. This doesn't represent a massive risk because they've also nerfed Zabu as well. So they've added power here and they've taken power off Zabu. So it's like kind of like you're using your MasterCard to pay your Visa to some degree with this here. That's not the greatest example, but you know what I mean? Those decks often ran Zabu. So, you know, you're taking one power here, you're putting it there, and it ends up being a wash. But it's very interesting to see what Invisible Woman's going to do to this deck, because I think that she might have a massive impact on the viability of Doom 2099. We're going to finish off with our patch notes here. A couple major patch notes we're saying. Now, I don't have any graphics for these yet because they weren't provided. But basically, they're going to have featured sets in the card shop, which will have limited combinations of individual cards, variants, or featured snap packs. So, for instance, I believe this first one we're going to see is going to be a variety pack of variants for the original Fantastic Four. I'm not sure what the cost is and stuff like that, but it looks like in the shop they're going to be like, hey, you want some variants for X-Men? Here they are at a discounted rate. Or, hey, you want to have a bunch of X-Men cards from Series 5? Here's a discounted pack of cards or whatever, right? And again, you'll be able to see what's in the snap packs before purchasing them. It's an interesting idea, especially for people that are trying to make more targeted decks. They're like, hey, I'm missing X23, I'm missing Null, I'm missing all these things. I want to make a destroy deck. How do I even do that? And all of a sudden there's a destroy pack. You're like, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. This is something they should have done a long time ago. They still talked about doing like creator packs and stuff like that. Ironically, I think it would have leaned mine into like the Bullseye side, but Bullseye just got nerfed. Anyways, hopefully they do that too. I would love to do that. And they also did a bonus card protection here. So one of the things that happened, now I've never had this happen, but when you're opening new snap packs, there's a chance that you roll a second card, but if you already own that card, you get the token compensation for it. So there's people that be like, hey, like I got like, you know, tons of tokens for rolling a snap pack and all that stuff, right? I've never had that happen. But now what they've done is those goodies that are guaranteed with the snap packs, you basically have a pity timer on getting that bonus card, which honestly is great. This is great because this means that you know, that pity timer is going to ensure that there's a little more influx of tokens into the system. They've also added more opportunities to spend tokens with these featured sets, but I think that there's credit where credit is due, and this bonus card protection is a pure good thing for players who are rolling snap packs in Marvel Snap. And also a small little thing, but also a good thing, when you get snap pack boosters, the boosters are going to be assigned to the card that you're unlocking, which is nice because that means you're just kickstarting your kind of ability to progress that through the mastery system, which is not all that great in and of itself, but at least this is a positive change. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you. Let me know in the comments what you think of the patch. There's another video for you on the screen, and we'll see you on that next one.